In the end, Ogden Nash was human and so not immune to sin. He drank and played the ponies, though he did neither to excess. He smoked, but then they all did then, and he appreciated a well-turned ankle, in the phrase from his youth. Portrait of the artist as a prematurely old man. It is common knowledge to every schoolboy and even every bachelor of arts that all sin is divided in two parts. One kind of sin is called a sin of commission, and that is very important. And it is what you are doing when you are doing something you oughtn't. And the other kind of sin is just the opposite, and is called a sin of omission, and is equally bad in the eyes of all right-thinking people, from Billy Sunday to Buddha, and it consists of not having done something you shoulda. I might as well give you my opinion of these two kinds of sin, as long as, in a way, against each other we are pitting them, and that is, don't bother your head about the sins of commission, because however sinful, they must at least be fun, or else you wouldn't be committing them. It is the sin of omission, the second kind of sin, that lays eggs under your skin. The way you really get painfully bitten is by the insurance you haven't taken out, and the checks you haven't added up, the stubs of, and the appointments you haven't kept, and the bills you haven't paid, and the letters you haven't written. Also, about sins of omission, there is one particularly painful lack of beauty. Namely, it isn't as though it's been a riotous red-letter day or night every time you neglected to do your duty. You didn't get a wicked, forbidden thrill every time you let a policy lapse or forgot to pay a bill. You didn't slap the lads in the tavern on the back and loudly cry, "Whee! Let's all fail to write just one more letter before we go home, and this round of unwritten letters is on me." No, you never get any fun out of things you haven't done. But they are the things I do not like to be amid, because the suitable things you didn't do give you a lot more trouble than the unsuitable things you did. The moral is that it is probably better not to sin at all, but if some kind of sin you must be pursuing, well, remember to do it by doing rather than by not doing. One of the poet's most frequent themes was domestic. Here he was most at home, at home. I test my bath before I sit, and I'm always moved to wonderment that what chills the finger not a bit is so frigid upon the fundament. He likes a good meal as much as the next man, too. The clean plater. Some singers sing of ladies' eyes, and some of ladies' lips. Refined ones praise their ladylike ways, and coarse ones hymn their hips. The Oxford Book of English Verse is lush with lyrics tender. A poet, I guess, is more or less preoccupied with gender. Yet I, though custom call me crude, prefer to sing in praise of food. Food, yes, food. Just any old kind of food. Pheasant is pleasant, of course, and terrapin, too, is tasty. Lobster I freely endorse, in pate or patty or pasty. But there's nothing the matter with butter, and there's nothing the matter with jam, and the warmest greeting I utter to the ham and the yam and the clam. For they're food, all food, though I think very fondly of food. Though I'm broody at times, when bothered by rhymes, I brood on food. Some painters paint the sapphire sea, and some the gathering storm. Others portray young lambs at play, but most the female form. 'Twas trite in the primeval dawn, when painting got its start, that a lady with her garments on is life, but is she art? By undraped nymphs I'm not wooed. I'd rather painters painted food. Food, just any old kind of food. Go purloin a sirloin, my pet, if you'd win a devotion incredible, and asparagus tips vinaigrette, or anything else that is edible. Bring salad or sausage or scrapple, a berry or even a beet. Bring an oyster, an egg, or an apple, as long as it's something to eat. If it's food, it's food. Never mind what kind of food. When I ponder my mind, I consistently find it is glued on food. He was a man who liked his creature comforts, as he was the first to acknowledge, and he well knew he had a woman to thank for them. Ogden Nash, hardly handsome, no athlete, and without much in the way of what would have been considered prospects, had the extraordinary luck, sheer doggedness, talent, and wherewithal to win himself a lady fair. Miss Frances Leonard of Baltimore, M.D. He wooed her and won her with letters. She wasn't having any of it, or him. She was something of an aristocrat. He was a humble editor at Doubleday and a scribbler of verse. She wasn't having any of it until, finally, she'd had enough and married him. She was a great beauty, smart and sharp, and he worshipped her. Whenever they were apart, he wrote her love letters. She loved them, who wouldn't? And he loved her passionately, if in his own way, as here from a letter dated July 7th, 1930. First, he tries a traditional sort of love poem, then abandons it. Quote, "As usual, when thinking of you, I got tongue-tied, so I had to do this instead. Here I sit, a silly lout, fumbling over phrases. Never will I pick one out fit to sing your praises. A word before you say goodbye, Frances, you'll discover truer poets far than I, but never truer lover." Here Nash on romance. Pardon me. That reminds me. Just imagine yourself seated on a shadowy terrace, and beside you is a girl who stirs you more strangely than an heiress. It is a summer evening at its most superb, and the moonlight reminds you that to love is an active verb. And the stars are twinkling like anything, and a distant orchestra is playing some sentimental old Vienna thing, and your hands clasp hers, which rest there without shrinking, and after a silence fraught with romance, you ask her what she is thinking. And she starts and returns from the moon-washed distances to the shadowy veranda and says, "Oh, I was wondering how many bamboo shoots a day it takes to feed a baby giant panda." Or you stand with her on a hilltop and gaze on a winter sunset, and everything is as starkly beautiful as a page from Sigrid Undset. And your arm goes round her waist and you make an avowal, which for masterfully marshaled emotional content might have been a page of Ouida's or Thackeray's. And after a silence fraught with romance, she says, "I forgot to order the limes for the daiquiris." Or in twilight drawing rooms, you have just asked the most momentous of questions. And after silence fraught with romance, she says, "I think this little table would look better where that little table is, but then where would this little table go? Have you any suggestions?" And that's the way they go round hitting below our belts. It isn't that nothing is sacred to them. It's just that at the sacred moment, they are always thinking of something else.